Hello. I just wanted to preface this video by saying that I am feeling a little bit under the weather, but I did want to record a video because I need to upload something to my channel. Ah, we finally made it to Skyridge, the most anticipated and penultimate set of the Wizards of the Coast era of Pokemon cards. Some of the most gorgeous artwork lies in the set, and I just get to cover it casually like this? Well, color me impressed, because I'm glad I got back into things. First, though, we're gonna have to get out of this underwater area, and I think I want to get out from the back here. But while we're talking, I can give a little insight on the set. This set was released May 12th, 2003, and features 182 cards, which is 2 less than Aquapolis. So that means that there will be 2 less cards for me to cover. This set also features the highest profile artists that this era has, and multiple artists get more than one card in this set, which just shows you that they were really going all out. This set features a total of 28 artists that worked on the set, and this is the last set in the E-series, technically, of Pokemon cards, considering the fact that since this is the last set that the Wizards of the Coast brand actually published for the Pokemon TCG. That's probably a good reason as to why it's so gargantuan and packed with high-profile artwork. Probably just because it's their final set, and they wanted to end off with a bang. But something else of to note is that it features more gorgeous secret rare Pokemon cards, and it's a continuation of the series that started in Aquapolis. Anyways, looks like we made it to the runway. I needed to get here so we could get started trying to find some way to actually get to the Sky Island, so I think I'll just figure that out as we go. But for now, let's just talk about a new artist, being Ken Ikuji, who worked on the Mystery Zone, which features a giant floating ball around a stadium with dead trees around it. The card is a little preposterous, but it's at least pretty interesting, as there are multiple things happening in the card, which make it stand out, and for a first card, I can't rag on Ikuji too much. For our next artist, we'll be talking about Shinichi Yoshikawa, and first, we'll talk about the bounce energy, which shows two energies that almost look elastic bounding upwards, as a light is shown above them, and a little blue trail can be seen below them. The cyclone energy showcases an energy in the middle of, well, a cyclone. Jokes aside, the effect on the wind looks quite nice, and I like the different colors as it goes from dark in the middle to light on the outside. The final card that Yoshikawa worked on was the Retro Energy, which showcases an energy in the middle of what looks to be a strand of DNA wrapping around it, and one in the background as well. I like the light yellow background on this card quite a bit, as well as the light coming off the energy. These three cards by Yoshikawa may all be energies, but I think they're at least interesting, and there's something to note about them. Our next artist is Hiromichi Sugiyama, who worked on a bunch of cards for Skyridge, but first we'll talk about the Miracle Sphere Alpha, which shows what I assume to be one of the Miracle Spheres with some cracked molten ground below it. The Miracle Sphere Beta looks to be another sphere, but this one looks to be underwater, as light shoots off the ball and glows blue and red. Then, the Miracle Sphere Upsilon lays in a grassy field as light erupts out of it. Then, there's the Mystery Plate Alpha, which shows a plate laying out in the sand with light peeking into the area. The Mystery Plate Beta, which hangs around some other rock, and some birds fly around the plate. The Mystery Plate Upsilon sits in a cave, with more light pushing onto it as well, as the cave entrance is on the right. Then, finally for Sugiyama, the Mystery Plate Delta, which looks to be in a lush field, as light spills onto it. Something I noticed about all the plates is that they're all very distinct locations, which makes them all feel unique. Mixed with the settings, make the cards look ancient and interesting. A returning artist is Jungo Suzuki, who worked on two cards for Skyridge, being the Crystal Shard, which shows a crystal necklace laying on top of some rocks, as a faint glow lights up the area around it, and the Star Piece, which lays on the ground as light irradiates off of it. These two cards are definitely serviceable, the Star Piece being the more interesting one in my opinion. I just like when the artist uses light as a concept or a feature in their cards. Our next artist is a name that hasn't been said since Versus, being Katsura Tabata, who worked on a handful of cards for the set. And Tabata is the first artist that we'll be talking about that has an actual Pokemon card, being the Skarmory, which flies into the air as we get a good top-down view of the Pokemon, with a crop circle being visible on the floor. Then, the Fastball, which has lines indicating how fast the ball is actually going as it flies through the air, and it has a lightning bolt on top of it, as well as projecting an afterimage. The friend ball has a nice pink background. Unfortunately, the design of the friend ball is kinda ugly, being a green and red, but that's not really Tabata's fault. The card also features an afterimage as well. The Hyper Potion is a new card in this set which showcases what I assume to be the Hyper Potion, as you get a good 3/4 angle of the potion, with a circle below it. And finally, the Lure Ball has a ring around it, as water ripples below it, showing off its affiliation with water. Tabata's trainer cards in the set are quite good. I like how they all feel a little bit different, as they should, but I feel like sometimes the trainers will all sort of blend in with each other sometimes. But As for the Skarmory, I actually really like this one, and I really like the top-down bird's eye view that we get on it with some clouds around it. An artist that I should have talked about a second ago would be Atsuko Ujie, who worked on the buried fossil card for this set, which actually features an HP value, which is interesting. Anyways, the card features the three fossils that the Pokemon can come from, being Ammonite, Kabuto, and Aerodactyl, which is shown in a cool way, with neat cracks and rocks around. For a single card, Ujie has a pretty interesting one, especially with that grainy texture on the card. Now, we can talk about Miki Tanaka, who worked on 7 cards for the set. Firstly, we'll talk about the Cleffa, which I think is on the moon, as it smiles and jumps around, and possibly evil triangles are in the background. The Machop shows it punching forwards as some kind of energy or waterfall is in the background with some mountains and a nice blue sky. The Natu looks upwards at the deep blue sky, which shows to be a little darker, and a ball reflects all of the Natu's head back onto it, and there is another ball to the left of it. The Poliwag is just walking along, as a bunch of grass surrounds it, and he looks very happy. The Sandslash looks up as it primes its claws, and the dunes stretch into the background. The Sunflora looks up at the camera as a waterfall flows in the background, with the tree on the right. You can see that Sunflora is standing on some sort of rock or cliff. And finally for Tanaka, the Yanma, which just flies along the empty dunes, which is simplistic but very effective. I think that's something you can say about a lot of Tanaka's cards. They really just exude that simplistic beauty that Pokemon is able to bring out. Well, Skyridge seems to be the set that's putting a quick and swift end to some artists entirely. And one of those artists that we're seeing leave the TCG is Keiko Fukuyama, but at least they were able to do a few cards before they left. One of those being the Abra, which covers its face as the sun almost blinds it, and a lovely flourishing city can be seen near the desert that it treasures through. The Igglybuff dips one of its little feet into the water as there are flowers that surround it, and lush trees and a forest can be seen as well. The Magikarp are shown in a pack as they climb up a waterfall, and the 3 determined Magikarp are seen going up at record pace. The Meowth seems to be eating an apricorn as it sits in a tree, right near the same oasis city that can be seen in the Abra card. The Staryu is very dynamic, as the Pokemon covers its own eye as it balances on one leg, in some kinda icy cave, with Golbats in the background. And this card also features a nice deep to light blue background with some water. Finally for Fukuyama, the Weedle, which floats along a leaf as it goes down the flowing river. And I like the colors that Fukuyama used for the Weedle, as they aren't very common colors for a Pokemon like this. Overall, these cards are really nice, and the style that Fukuyama built while they were working on the TCG can be felt all these years later, with really stunning renditions of Pokemon like Abra or Staryu. Another artist whose final cards were in Skyrish is Hizuki Mizono, but to be fair, they only have 4 cards in their entire repertoire. Even still, it's sad to see them go so soon. They worked on the Wigglytuff, which is very round, and it looks to the left as this tree blossoms, and a deep purple sky is seen in the background. Then, the Hoothoot, which flies in the sky. I like how the plain white can be interpreted, like I can see it as a sky, or I can see it as a piece of clay. I like these cards because they give me very vintage vibes. And the weird and interesting art style makes you take a double take because there are only 2 cards like this in this entire set and in Aquapolis. And Misono's clay style doesn't really clash with Mori's style at all, so it makes you take a double take, truly. Well, looks like we're talking about another artist whose last card was in Skyridge, being Masako Yamashita, who worked on a couple of cards for this set, being the Growlithe, which looks over to the right confidently, and it's surrounded by many bricks and trees, the Ladybug, which looks over to the right as well, as blades of grass surround it, and another Ladybug fly away from it into the light baby blue sky. The Nidoran, which looks down at the water below it, as it wants to drink from the water, or it could be looking at its own reflection. And finally, the Rattata, which seems to be kicking some dust or dirt behind it, as its mouth lays wide open. I feel like Yamashita really has some standout cards, especially the Growlithe and the Ladybug. But also, Yamashita really has been at it since Neo Revelation, making interesting cards out of different themes. But I think the most prevalent theme between all these cards is the idea of nature, especially cards like the Vulpix from Neo Destiny,
Not to mention also the Light Ninetales from Neo Destiny.
Parasect from Aquapolis, or the Nidoran from Skyridge. They're all just a lot of cards that Yamashita have that have simple ideas but are executed very well as more abstract cards like the Spinarak from Aquapolis, or the Porygon, that make you look twice to just admire the artwork. Too bad Yamashita won't be featured in any other new cards anytime soon. If there's an artist that I want to return with a random common or uncommon card, it'd probably be Yamashita for the time being. I think I'll wrap up this first part of this massive set here. I want to give enough time for each part of the set, and I think the first part was the perfect time to introduce some of the artists who worked on some of the more basic Pokemon that received, as well as a lot of the trainers that we got in this set. But that doesn't mean that these cards aren't beautiful and are part of an amazing set. These cards are the cornerstone of what make this set so amazing in the first place. So, until next time, in Skyridge Part 2.